The Now to Live show is your network connection to the spirit of sobriety. All right, so this episode, we're going to be discussing step 7, step 8, step 9. Step 7 is humility. Step 8 is preparing to make amends. And step 9 is to make amends. But before we get started on that, I'd just like to take a moment and share something with you. And that is 4 days ago marked the 15th year since my son, Joey, known as Joey, Joseph Ryan Kennedy, passed away from a drug overdose of opioids and benzodiazepam. I can tell you this about Joey is that he was an all-American boy. I mean, he was charismatic, he was athletic, he was artistic, he was obviously handsome. Maybe I'm being prejudiced, but I think he was. And he was very spiritually sensitive. And unfortunately, like many of us, he had the misfortune of becoming addicted to painkillers, and those painkillers took his life. The reason I'm bringing this up is because, first of all, everything that I do when it pertains to helping people to get sober or to find a different way to live their life without the need to anesthetize themselves is to honor him. I know that he's an angel now. I know that he's inspiring me in many different ways, and I do believe in my heart that he's helping others as well, to be able to break the chains of addiction. I'm very grateful for that knowledge. I will say this, that when he passed away, that was by far the darkest day in my life. I can't even imagine anything that could be darker than that. And trust me, I hope that none of you ever had to experience that, or even worse, have your family experience that on your behalf. But that being said, being in recovery at that time, I knew that my most important duty to myself was to stay sober. And I did. And because of that, I'm eternally grateful. And the reason for that is because, like I mentioned in previous episodes, the most important thing for us to understand is that as we get sober, we learn how to deal with things. And so that's an example of even the most difficult things that happen in your life, you can stay sober. If I could stay sober, you can stay sober. Once again, I just wanted to acknowledge that and express to you that I know that you have an opportunity to become sober, just like me, if you're not already done so. And I'm also doing this in honor of the memory of my son, Joey, Joseph Ryan Kennedy. Anyway, let's talk about step number 7, or mountain number 7. Mountain number 7 is based on humility. I know that when we're in our active addiction, humility is not necessarily something that we practice. I do know when we're in our active addiction, oftentimes we definitely are involved in being humiliated or humiliating others. And so there's no parallel between being humble and being humiliated. In your addiction, humiliation is a very normal thing. In your sobriety, in order to stay and become even more sober, being humble is the key. And let me just give you an illustration of that. If you're humble, just understand this, that you would never look down on someone, not unless you're there to help them up. Remember that. That's what we're talking about when we say being humble. I said this in a previous episode as well, with C.S. Lewis, where he said, being humble is not thinking less of yourself, it's just thinking of yourself less. Well, these are the truisms pertaining to being humble for yourself. Now, in step 7, you're now preparing to really eradicate any kind of pride or ego that you have inside of you in order for you to be in a position where you can express true and honest sharing with those that you might have hurt in your life when you were in your addiction, how sorry you are and how much you hope that they can forgive you. And so step 7 is really preparing you to do that. It's providing you the opportunity to really get focused on love, on courage, and on focus itself, which will provide to you the necessary strengths in order for you to complete both step 7, step 8, and step 9. Step 8 is based on making preparation for amends. What that entails is we're going to ask you to make a list of everyone that you can possibly think of that you might have harmed in your addiction or caused issues or difficulties for in your addiction. I mean, it has to be thorough. I mean, prepare yourself to the extent that by the time you finish that list, you are confident that that is a complete list of individuals or organizations or whatever it might be that you had created difficulties for in your active addiction. When you make that list, be sure to also include yourself, because if anybody hurts you more than you, I'd be surprised. You probably hurt yourself more than anyone else could ever hurt you. So make sure that you include yourself in that list. And then what you need to do is you need to become willing to make amends. And really, that's the key. So you make the list of those individuals or organizations that you've created difficulty with or have harmed. And then once you make that thorough list, then it's important for you to reach deep and become willing to make amends to those individuals or organizations. And so that's when we get to step 9, because that's when you actually make the amends. That means that you are absolutely willing. You're willing to go to any lengths to reach out to these individuals or organizations to make amends. Now, sometimes you might not be able to do it in person because maybe they're not on this earth anymore. They might have passed on, but that doesn't mean you still don't make amends to them. I mean, you can easily sit down and write a letter and just express how you feel and whatever, and maybe symbolically. I mean, I've done this myself, and I know a lot of people have done this, where they write down the amends and then they burn it. It's kind of like symbolizes when the smoke goes up into the air that they're reaching that individual and asking for forgiveness. You have to have courage. You have to be willing to really reach out to individuals that you might be afraid to do that because you think that they're going to reject you. Well, let me just say this. Here's the reality. The reality is, once you make that amends to that person, whether or not they accept it or not, you have done what you needed to do in order to maintain and strengthen your sobriety. If they don't forgive you, that's not on you anymore. That's on them. And let's hope that that's not the case, because if it is the case, then maybe they need to come talk to us as well so we can help them go through these steps. Because you're taking steps to freedom. You're taking steps to really involve yourself in becoming who you are, who you were meant to be. Why God put you on this earth. What is your purpose? Your purpose is to be complete and not create illusions or delusionment for yourself through altering your mind by medicating or substance abuse or so forth and so on. In the same token, for those of you who are, dealing with anxiety and depression and things of that nature. I mentioned this before, I'm not a doctor and I'll never pretend to be a doctor, but I can tell you that if you are under a doctor's care, that's probably a good thing for you. In the same token, though, I can promise you that these steps will help you very effectively in your journey to overcome the anxiety and or the depression that you're experiencing in your life. So step 7, being humble. Step 8, preparing to make amends. And step 9, making amends. And when you get through those steps, then you're going to be ready to journey on to the last 3 steps of the 12 steps, which is step 10, 11, and 12. And they are designed to take you to the absolute understanding of who you are, why you're here, the purpose of why you're here, and more importantly, to provide you joy, happiness, and honesty in your daily lives. Really what it was about was just to reinforce that there's nothing you can't deal with when you get sober. Mm-hmm. That's the whole idea, because people oftentimes, when they get sober or they think they're getting sober, or if something traumatic happens in their life, then they didn't build a strong enough foundation for themselves, and because of that, they succumb to the disease, right? I mean, it's a very powerful disease, and it might just be out in the hallway doing push-ups, waiting for you to get weak. People who, it's a cunning, baffling, and insidious disease, addiction. It encompasses a lot of different things, not just alcohol and drugs, but also sex and pornography and overeating and, shopping. It's just crazy how many things it encompasses. But you know what? The reality is that, when you are in the throes of an addiction that's really causing harm for you and for those around you, that pain is your pain. You don't have to be, on Skid Row. You don't have to be in some shooting gallery or, living in a cardboard home on the side of the street to feel the pain of addiction. Pain is pain. And your pain is your pain. And you know what? You don't deserve to feel that pain. Heavenly Father, God, our Father in heaven, He doesn't want you to feel that pain. He wants you to be free of that pain. And that's why these 12 steps are here for us. They will free you. They will help you understand that you can have happiness, joy, and amazing purpose in your life when you get sober. Because in essence, what you're really doing is you're refocusing who you are. He put you on this earth. When you were first born, you didn't have any of these issues. These issues came along through what? Circumstance, maybe genetics, who knows? But the reality is, it happened. And so, now what? Are you going to succumb? Or are you going to, let pride initiate your daily life, which is very shallow and not true? There's a saying that says pride and honesty cannot coexist with each other. Think about that. Pride and honesty cannot coexist with each other. If you're going to be honest, 9 times out of 10, no. If you're going to be honest, 10 times out of 10, if you're honest, you're humble. If you're not going to be honest, 10 times out of 10, you're going to be prideful. So it's your choice. In our addiction, we are prideful. Fear becomes our motivator, and we're unhappy. But, we become comfortable being uncomfortable. So now we got to reverse that. And that's what these 12 steps do. They help you become comfortable being comfortable. Remember I said, good habits are hard to obtain, but they're easy to live with. Bad habits are easy to obtain, but they're hard to live with. So we're going to change the bad habits to good habits. And when you do that, you become happy. Life is simpler. Life is manageable. And most importantly, no matter what the circumstance might be, no matter what the situation or the issue might be, you'll be able to deal with it. And that in itself is the greatest reward that we could give to ourselves. So remember this, that we love you. Our whole desire is to help you. Our community is designed to help you. We wish that you would reach out to us and let us know what we can do to help you. And all you need to do is access the information on this channel here, and there'll be an email that you can, contact us with, and we'll reach back out to you, and we will be more than happy to do whatever we can to help you, find, that purposeful life that you're looking for in sobriety. Now, that being said, as we finish up these steps, so the next episode will be the steps we'll be working on will be 10, 11, and 12. Once we get finished those steps, then we are actually going to start having people come on the episodes that, have experienced things in their life that they'll be able to, they'd be willing to talk about how they're dealing with it and how they've overcome them, if they have overcome them, and if they haven't, we're going to be there to help them overcome them. And we really need to get this out there because, there's so much difficulty in this world nowadays, and there's so much confusion. There's just so much mumbo jumbo going on. You don't know what to believe or whatever. Well, I can promise you that when we're talking to you, we are talking to you from the heart. There's no ulterior motive here other than to help you. We're here to help you. And I hope you can feel that. I really pray that you can feel that. As you're watching this, I hope that you feel our love for you and our desire to help you. you.